All right, folks. Well, good afternoon. Welcome to our second virtual community briefing for the 2026-2027 AAPI CDF, the AAPI Community Development Fund. We are so thankful and grateful to have you here today, and we appreciate all the questions that have come in through Zoom registration. And we will discuss a little bit more in terms of housekeeping items before we dive in to discussing more about the 26-27 AAPI CDF RFA process. So before we start, just want to give some few important housekeeping items. First and foremost, we know folks are still trickling in, but if you can, in the Zoom chat box, please introduce yourselves with your name, your org name, and where in New York you're based. Second, during this briefing and until we get to the Q&A session, please, if you have questions to ask, we ask you to please put them in the Zoom chat box. And from there, we will read your questions when we get to the Q&A session. And we will explain the format a little bit more clearly as we get to that part of the briefing. Lastly, this briefing is recorded, and after today's briefing, we will send folks a copy of the recording along with today's presentation slide deck. So with that being said, we will proceed with our briefing.
Hello, everyone. I will be going over today's agenda. So again, welcome. Thank you for being here. First, we'll start off with grants and contracts, team's introductions. Then we'll be sharing about CACF, the work that we do. Then we'll go over the 2026-2027 AAPI CDF. Next, we'll be sharing about organizational eligibility, vetting, project areas, and budget. Then we'll go on to application and evaluation. Later, we'll share our contact information. And last, we'll end with a Q&A. Next slide, please, Francis. Thank you. So I will introduce myself first. My name is Adeline DeDivas. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a Grants and Contracts Associate. I'll pass it over to Francis.
Thank you so much, Adeline, and good afternoon again, folks. My name is Francis Asbrick, he, him pronouns. I am the grants coordinator. Excited to see you all here, and I'll pass it off to my colleague, Kit.
Hi everyone, so lovely to see you all here. My name is Kit Lau, pronouns she, her, and I'm the Senior Contracts Coordinator. Also like to introduce our Director of Grants and Contracts, who's not online here, but she's Ambrosia Kwai, pronouns she, they. Next slide, please. And here's the rest of our team on this slide. Uh, we have Fiona Zhao, the grants coordinator, Stephen Almendades, senior contracts coordinator, Camilla Song, contracts and invoicing coordinator, Juan Chen, contracts and invoicing coordinator, and Lynn Abby Bigord, and she's our grants and contracts intern. So we just wanted to share our entire GNC grants and contracts team with y'all. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Kit. So before we dive into the 2026-2027 New York State AAPI Community Development Fund and explaining the RFA and other components of the application process, we wanted to start off by just talking a bit more about our organization, CACF, which is the Coalition for Asian American Children and Families. And this year, we're entering a milestone year. CACF is turning 40 years young. And since its founding in 1986, it's the nation's only Pan-Asian children and family advocacy organization that continues to bring together community-based organizations as well as youth and community members to fight for equity for for our AAPI community. The mission for CACF is to advocate for equity and opportunity for marginalized AAPI children and families. And its vision is for all children and families, including AAPIs in New York, to be safe, healthy, and able to reach their full potential in life. So as we're discussing a little bit more and giving brief context about CACF and who we are, we also would love to share another important part about our organization, which is our work. And there are three main pillars that reflect on the work of CACF. First and foremost, our first pillar is leadership development. And within our leadership development, we offer youth programs such as ASAP, ICANN, AAPI Lead. And then we also, in addition to the youth programs, we also have programs for our parents and caregivers and our community-based organizations, such as Healing Ourselves and Healing Our Communities. And with these programs, we we work towards developing leadership um, leadership mindsets where where folks are. It brings awareness of identities. It brings a sense about their role in society, and it also allows folks to build the skills to uplift one another, and also engage in cross collaborative advocacy. Our second key pillar is our membership and coalition building. And we have one of our features is the paid membership structure. But in addition to the paid membership structure, we focus on building up the capacity of communities, organizations, and individuals. And that's through our grants and subcontracts program. Just to list a few of these items under our grants and subcontracts, like the New York State Equity Budget, AAPI CDF, the Nonprofit Stabilization Fund, Patient Navigator, the Asian American Crisis Relief Fund. So just acknowledging the folks on the call. There are some folks we have worked with through either one of these opportunities or all of these opportunities. And then lastly, under the membership and coalition building, we focus on convening power, and our focus is within our campaign steering committees, along with intergenerational learning. The last pillar of CACF's work is the policy and advocacy, which of course is reflective on the continued dedication and work of the campaigns that CACF engages with and definitely engaging our communities on. First and foremost, our budget equity, which is relating to both our city and state opportunities. The city equity on 18% and growing. And then for the state, it's the Equity Budget Coalition. Folks may have been with us on February 10th when we did our Advocacy Day in Albany. So if you were there that day, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of this. And again, this is very indicative and reflective of our current grants and subcontract programs that we're able to continue to offer. In addition to budget equity, we also are engaged and continue to work on language access, data disaggregation, health equity, and child welfare. So acknowledging that we have new applicants, we also have returning applicants. But just to start off, especially as you were reviewing our latest RFA for the 26-27 AAPI Community Development Fund, We are happy to share that this is our fifth consecutive cycle, excuse me, that we're able to offer AAPI CDF. And just knowing how critical and important this award is for our communities. So, for folks who are trying to understand for the first time about our AAPI CDF award, so this is an award that holistically supports approaches to projects relating to address hate, bias, and racism, to addressing the mental health needs and increasing the safety of AAPI New Yorkers, and then providing the critical social and health programs and services that promote the safety and overall well-being of our communities.
To be eligible to apply for this grant, your organization must have 501(c)(3) status for at least 2 years. You also must have current registration with the New York State Charities Bureau, with the Office of the Attorney General. And your organization must demonstrate that you have experience working with and serving the AAPI populations, as well as serving primarily New York State residents. Your organization should also have demonstrated commitment to equal employment opportunities and have the capacity to deliver cultural competence services. If you are a religious organization, your services must be open to all communities. And organizations that have an annual operating budget of less than 5 million are eligible to apply. If you are receiving an award from the 25-26 New York State equity budget, then you won't be able to apply for the AAPI CDF grant, or we call it the AAPI Community Development Fund, but you will often hear us calling it shorthand as AAPI CDF. And last but not least, if you are thinking of applying through fiscal sponsorship, your fiscal sponsor organization must meet all these eligibility requirements as well. Next slide, please. CACF will conduct internal vetting on all the applications that we receive. So this is a list of the databases and agency websites that we check for your organization. We'll go on the IRS database to verify that your organization is tax exempt. We will use your EIN number that you provide to us in your application to check that. And we also check the New York State Department of State Corporations database to make sure that you are incorporated in New York State. And also we'll check if you have a current registration with the New York State Charities Bureau, which you also will provide us the Charities Bureau number in the application that you submit to us. The next two lists is from the New York State Department of Labor. And these are department lists that we're checking if your organization does show up. And if we do find an applicant that is on the department list, we'll reach out to you to have a further conversation and go over your eligibility. And Adeline has just provided the links in the chat box, and you can feel free to go on these links and look up your organization. And after this Zoom webinar, we'll be sending out the slide deck, and these links on the slide is also good for you to use to check on your organization. Last but not least, the budget that you submit in your application will be reviewed by us. We're making sure that all your costs on your budget is allowable, that it supports your project, and making sure that everything is compliant. And this vetting also applies if you are going to use a fiscal sponsor. We'll check your fiscal sponsor on all these databases and websites as well. Next slide, please. On the application, you're asked to submit your budget for your proposed project. So there's two important things to remember when thinking about your funding amount request. The first one is that the maximum funding request will be 30,000. And the second important thing to remember is that your ask cannot exceed 35% of your annual operating budget. So when you're submitting your annual budget, uh, your annual budget will determine how much you can ask for. So know your organizational budget total and work off that when you're deciding how much you will be asking through this AAPI CDF grant. And if your organization is small and or if you don't have an operating budget for any reason, you can request up to $5,000. But if you have more questions on this, please reach out to us after this and we can help answer your questions and support you. AAPI Community Development Fund, or CDF, is a reimbursement-based award. So what this means is that you are expected to pay for your project costs upfront first, and then you'll request reimbursement through different periods of the grant cycle. And you are expected to spend down your full award amount. This is very important to show how critical the award is. So please know that you are expected to be able to manage the award and also spend down the full award that you are granted. Next slide, please. The application has two parts, two sections. The first section, you'll be filling out your organizational background and information. And the second section will ask about your project description and your budget as well. There are also two documents that you will be asked to upload in your application. The first one is your project budget, where you will list the estimated costs that you are planning to spend to implement your proposed project. And the second document that you will upload is your organizational operating budget. And here's the link that you can access in the slide deck that we'll send to you if you don't have it already. Next slide, please.
Thank you very much, Kit. So as you're reviewing our latest RFA and you're looking at each section, we definitely want to just bring your attention to the project funding focus areas. Just again, acknowledging there are returning awardees and applicants who may have applied in past years. You may have noticed that there is one new update on one of the work scope areas, and that is the community-centered programming. In last year's CDF application, it used to be known as the healing focused and community empowerment programs. So we changed it to community centered programming, primarily first because there was a lot of overlap between the healing focus and community empowerment programs and the cultural and arts programming. So we wanted to lessen that confusion, but also that the community-centered programming, as you're probably reading through the description and a little bit more of what that work scope area may look like, it still focuses on relationship building, community healing, and cultural preservation. The other update that you may notice in this RFA is that under the life-affirming multi-social services and other holistic supports, we added one additional program that would fall under that category. That would be the civic engagement program. And again, as you're reviewing the RFA and you come across this additional program under the life-affirming multi-social services, It gives a bit of definition and description of what that would entail. So just in case folks are thinking about doing a project along those lines. Something also important to note is that as you're deciding what your proposed project may look like and which work scope area you're thinking of choosing, you may choose more than one work scope area, but just keep in mind as you're deciding on that additional work scope area if needed, making sure there is direct relevancy and relationality to your proposed project. So another important area that we want to address and clarify, and we know folks have a lot of questions on, is the project evaluation criteria. So how exactly is your like what excuse me, what exactly are we looking for in your project proposal? Well, first and foremost, it's important to make sure that your project, it's focused, it's well defined, and that it clearly and directly aligns with one of the work scope areas that you identify in the application. As mentioned before, the purpose of the AAPI CDF award and what it supports. AAPI CDF award, it holistically addresses hate and bias. It's also important to make sure as you're thinking about your project proposal and the intentions and the relationality to the AAPI CDF award, making sure that there's a clear description and understanding of the community need and the project, the potential impact that it'll have on the AAPI community. Also important to make sure that your proposed project, it's demonstrating the linguistic and cultural capacity as an organization, along with the understanding of the cultural and linguistic needs of the populations being served. So as you probably have read in this updated RFA, so the timeline for this RFA is 11 months. It will start on May 1st, 2026, and it will conclude on March 31st, 2027. So make sure as you're thinking about your project proposal, making sure that it has a clear and realistic timeline relating to the grant period for the AAPI CDF award, along with thinking about the proposed impact. Lastly, it's important as you're thinking about your proposed project, you're also thinking about your proposed project budget and making sure there is alignment and relationality between the two. And while you're thinking about your project budget, it's important to make sure that the project costs are reasonable, that it can be accomplished within the 11-month grant period. So this is how our timeline looks like. Our timeline is basically, again, this is an 11-month grant period starting from May 1st, 2026 until March 31st, 2027. So following today's briefing, we will hold office hours. We will hold office hours the week before the application is due, but also we are also available to hold office hours even now. So if you want to reach out to us with any additional questions or concerns that you may not ask at today's briefing, you are more than welcome to schedule one-on-one office hours with us, and we are happy to speak with you and guide you through the application process. Please note that in terms of just really important deadline, if there's a date you want to mark on your calendar, ping on your Google Calendar, etc. Please keep in mind that March 9th is the deadline at 11:59 p.m. for your applications. Thank you in advance to those that have already sent their applications. But for those who have yet to still send in their applications, you have until March 9th at 11:59 p.m. Applications that are received after that will not be considered. From there, our allocation panelists, who are volunteer panelists who have work experiences within the nonprofit and philanthropy sectors, they will be the ones who are reviewing and evaluating your applications. From there, they will also decide who to award. So to give folks a sense of when they expect to hear back from us, April 24th would be the latest you would hear from us. But again, in the interim, please reach out to us if you have more questions. And then again, just to remind folks that this is an 11-month grant period. So if awarded, your projects commence on May 1st, 2026, and they conclude on March 31st, 2027. So in addition to making sure that your projects are completed, also make sure, as Kit mentioned earlier, to make sure that your project budget spending, making sure that is all completely spent.
We wanted to share some of the common questions that we receive from applicants. If the first question is, if my organization receives funding from the 25-26 New York State Department of State Equity through either CACF or Asian American Federation, are you still eligible to apply for the 26-27 AAPI CDF? And the answer is unfortunately no. If your organization is receiving equity budget funding for 25-26 cycle from either us, CACF, or Asian American Federation, you are ineligible to apply for the CDF grant. The reason being is that equity funding and the CDF funding comes from the state source, the same contract. So you can only receive one or the other. Second question is, has the application changed from last year? No, the application questions and format are the same. Is any of this funding from the federal government? So thus far, the funding is 100% state funded. Do we receive funds at the midpoint of the project timeline? You will receive a 25% advance upfront after the subcontract is executed. Subcontract meaning the agreement that your organization and CACF will execute together. Or if you're using a fiscal sponsor, your fiscal sponsor organization and CACF will execute together for the agreement. And then you will receive a 25% advance upfront. And then the remainder of your award will be reimbursement based. And we have different reporting periods during the grant cycle for you to request reimbursement. And there is a reporting process that we will definitely let you know if you are awarded. Is there an opportunity to get feedback if you submit your application early? So even if you submit your application early, we cannot provide any feedback on your proposed project. Your application will go directly to the allocation panelists who will review and evaluate your applications. What we can do is provide a technical support. We can answer technical questions about the Google form, formatting. Yeah, next slide, please. And here's contact information for you to reach out to us. If you have any questions regarding 26-27 AAPI CDF application, here's Francis's, myself, Adeline, and Ambrosia's contacts. Next slide, please. If you have any questions, you can drop it in the chat box. We're going to start answering questions, and I'll pass it to Francis so he'll let you know how the Q&A is going to go.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kit. And yes, so now we've entered our Q&A session. So before we dive into the Q&A session, we just want to explain how the format will be. So first and foremost, we will read the questions that folks submitted on the Zoom registration. And then from there, we will read the questions that folks have dropped in the chat box. And then afterwards, if folks want to either use the raise hand emoji and unmute themselves, or you can continue dropping questions in the chat box, that is perfectly fine. But just to give you a sense of how we'd like to do the Q&A and just being mindful of time. So we'll start off first by reading the questions that folks submitted in the Zoom registration. And thank you to those that submitted questions in the Zoom registration. So we're just gonna, sorry. Sorry about that, folks. We're just going to pull up the questions and go ahead and proceed to read them. So the first question, it came from Hital Jani. What kinds of projects would fall under this grant funding requirements? So as mentioned at the start of the briefing, so the 26-27 AAPI Community Development Fund, it supports projects that holistically address racism and bias. It addresses also projects that support mental health and well-being, along with services and trainings that would that continue to support our AAPI communities here in New York. If you look within the RFA, if you look at the section with the 8 work scope areas listed, there is a description and also just some additional helpful details as you're deciding which project area you'd like to choose. But yes, this is excuse me. But the CDF award, it holistically supports projects that that again, you when you're reviewing the section under in the RFA under the work scope areas, there are 8 different areas to look at and decide on. And as mentioned before, you can choose more than one work scope area, deciding on what your project proposal may look like.
Next question is from Amy Sang from Speak. What is the policy around organizations that have received previous support reapplying again?
I can answer that, Kit. So thank you, Amy, for your question. So acknowledging we have returning awardees on this at this briefing. Returning awardees, they can reapply again.
And
Okay.
also, if you have applied before and you're eligible, we do encourage you to apply again. Next question is from Julie Tay. Is this a new fund? What, if any, was the older iteration that morphed into AAPI CDF? So this AAPI Community Development Fund, or CDF, it's not a new fund. We're in our 5th consecutive cycle. What may have changed is the work scope. The work scope has changed slightly in some of the project area descriptions because we received feedback from the awardees about project areas. So we wanted to change the work scope slightly to better fit the needs of applicants who are applying. And we're able to continue the AAPI CDF funding because of the advocacy from our Equity Budget Coalition that has worked so hard to secure the 26-27 state funding. Next question from Kano Reese. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. What metrics are used in decision making? What is the best way to support other AAPI organizations? I'll pass this question to Francis.
Sure. Thank you, Kit. And Kanoi, I could answer that question. So the decisions are made by anonymous allocation panel, which is currently composed of 17 panelists, and they review and discuss every application holistically. So as they're reviewing every application holistically, there are some factors that they take into consideration. So, for example, the eligibility of organizations. So, if an organization meets the eligibility criteria stated in the RFA. Another one is the proposal clearly identifies a need within their community and demonstrates the connection between how their project would meet that need or fill that gap. Another important area is proposal demonstrates an understanding of and connection to the communities they work with. Also important is the budget and the project alignment with guidance provided in the RFA. So because we discuss every application and the cohort holistically, there is a component of who applies to this fund that also impacts decisions made by the allocation panel. So, Knoy, hopefully we answered that question. Okay, next question. I'll read this one. This is from Stephanie Smith. Please provide clarity on whether AAF funded agencies are eligible to apply. We want to make sure that an AAF funding relationship does not disqualify us, as previously we've invested time only to be disqualified due to receiving AAF funding. Thank you. Ambrosia, would you be okay answering this one?
Yeah, I am happy to take this question. So, if you're funded by an allocation from the Equity Budget Coalition, which is an allocation from the state that is dispersed by both CACF and AAF, then you would be ineligible to apply for AAPI-CDF because they come from the same funding pot. So I guess for additional clarity, it's not the relationship with AAF funding. It's whether that makes your organization ineligible. It's whether or not you already receive funding through this state allocation, either from AAF or CACF, since we are the main contract holders for this specific state allocation. So I think the main thing that for AAPI-CDF, the purpose of AAPI-CDF is to get funding to people who aren't already funded, which is why, regardless of whether you receive funding from AAF or CACF, you cannot apply to this award. It's for folks who are not already allocated that funding. Back to you, Kit and Francis. And if anybody has any additional questions on that, happy to elaborate. Just put it in the chat.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Ambrosia, for answering that question. So the next question comes from Yun Kyung Kim. Can we ask for multiple project? We can answer this in two ways. So for your project proposal, folks have the option of focusing on one project or more than one project. So you do have that flexibility and option. In addition, as mentioned before in the RFA, when you're looking at the section under the work scope areas, you also have the option of choosing more than one work scope area. But just please keep in mind, making sure whichever work scope area you are indicating, making sure that it has a direct relation to your proposed project.
Next one is Bijaya Khadka. I understand that the grant amount cannot exceed 35% of an organization's annual operating budget. How does CACF define annual operating budget? And how should volunteer organizations without a formal operating budget approach this requirement? I can define the annual operating budget. So when you are submitting your annual operating budget or annual organizational budget, it should list your projected revenues, projected income, as well as expenses for your current fiscal year, which should be 2026. If you are a volunteer-run organization and you might not have revenues on your budget, or for some reason you don't have a budget available, we do need you to draw up some type of organizational budget If it is a really small budget, you can ask for a request of $5,000 when applying for this grant. Next question from Aruj Khan. How much of the funds can be used towards operations and assisting community? So when you are thinking of how to allocate your proposed ask in the budget template, like we don't have a restriction on allocation of your award. We don't have a restriction or a cap on like categories such as like supplies, salaries, or or a required percentage of where you should spend your dollars. Uh, what we are looking for when we're reviewing your budget is that it does all the costs that you're proposing, that it should properly support in executing your projects, and that it's allowable, and that it makes sense. And CDF does have specific rules. Since it's government contracting, it does have specific rules on what's allowable and what's unallowable. So if you are awarded, we will provide a list of that to you as well. Next question is from Saima Mohammed. What distinguishes the most competitive applications, particularly for community-based organizations serving immigrants and limited English proficient populations? Francis, are you okay taking this question?
Yeah, thank you, Kit. So, Saima, yes, your question, also, again, just going back to a similar question that was asked before, just in terms of what the decision-making process would look like for the applicants, especially given, excuse me, the most competitive applications. So again, the decisions, they are made by an anonymous allocation panel, and this would currently comprise of 17 panelists. So they would review and discuss your application, oh, excuse me, every application holistically. And as they're reviewing every application holistically, there's important factors that they take into consideration. For example, looking at the eligibility of the organizations to make sure that the organization meets the eligibility criteria as stated in the current RFA. In addition, looking at the project proposal, making sure that the project proposal clearly identifies a need within their community, along with demonstrating the connection between how their project would meet that need or be able to fill the existing gap. Also, making sure that the project proposal, that it demonstrates an understanding of and a connection to the communities that the org is working with. And most importantly, making sure that the project budget and the project proposal, making sure that there is a direct and clear alignment, especially as mentioned in the RFA on what the eligibility, as you're reviewing the eligibility factor, excuse me, and making sure that the project budget and project alignment closely connect and relate. So as just mentioning some of these important factors that are taken into consideration. So because we discuss every application and the cohort holistically, so there is a component of who applies to this fund that also impacts the decisions made by the allocation panel. So hopefully this answers your question directly. Excuse me, we'll move on to the next one. So June Shen asks how to get funding from state. So June, hopefully we understand this question, but we can first and foremost say that the CDF award, that this is a state grant award. So you can definitely apply for this. But also please keep in mind too that CACF is not a state provider, and that we do not have the specific guidance at this time to be able to advise folks on getting state funding aside from AAPI CDF. If hopefully we answered that question, please let us unmute yourself or share in the chat box if you need a little more clarification. And then lastly, from the Zoom registration questions, so Abdul Basir Adelyar, how can we get a grant to run our community office? As of now, there are volunteers running the office with personal expenses. Definitely, thank you for asking this question. Definitely, we encourage you to apply for the CDF award. This definitely, the award can help with this particular area that you're addressing. And if you can, please reach out to us offline. We can speak with you one-on-one and answer any more questions you may have in regards to this. But we definitely encourage you to apply. So with that being said, we're going to now transition from the questions that were asked in the Zoom registration to now asking questions that folks dropped in the Zoom chat box. So Sunny Kumar asks, does the minimum or maximum operating budget need to be 5 million? Kit, would you be okay answering this?
Sure. Your operating budget cannot exceed 5 million. So it doesn't mean that your organizational budget has to be exactly 5 million. Just know that your organizational budget cannot exceed 5 million for you to be eligible to apply for this grant. Next question, Saiful Hoke. What is the maximum amount we can request? I see Francesca McKenzie has helped answer that question, and they are right. It is 30,000. So 30,000 is the maximum you can request for. But also remember that that is also based on what your annual operating budget is. If it's what is 35% of your annual operating budget? So just be mindful of that. Next question is from Amy Sang. Is there a list or guide about what kinds of costs are or aren't allowed for the budget? Yes, there is a list of what is allowable there is a list of what is allowable to be reimbursed. And we'll provide that list for those who are awarded. But some of the things that are not allowable to be reimbursed under the New York State Department of State contracting are taxes. You cannot get reimbursed for taxes. You cannot get reimbursed for any fundraising expenses. You cannot get reimbursed for alcohol expenses. Like if you have events and you're planning to buy alcohol, that cannot be reimbursed. And also any travel outside of New York State cannot be reimbursed. And there's more, but we'll share that with organizations that do get awarded. Next question is from Rita Chan. Can you break down what you mean by projects that demonstrate linguistic and cultural capacity? I'll defer this to my team to answer.
Hey, Kit, I can try to take I can try to answer this. And thank you, Rita, for your question. So, what do we mean by projects that demonstrate linguistic and cultural capacity, especially as you're thinking about the AAPI Community Development Fund Award, making sure that making sure that whichever your project proposal may be and the selected work scope areas that you want to identify for your proposed project, making sure that, again, this project is holistically serving the AAPI communities. So in terms of linguistic and cultural capacity, making sure that it's reflecting on language access, depending on which ethnic populations you're serving. And also for the cultural capacity, is your project targeting a specific AAPI ethnic population, or is it serving the general population? But just making sure as you're utilizing the AAPI CDF award if you are awarded. And as you're again thinking about what your project proposal, who as you're envisioning what it looks like and who it's intending to serve, making sure that in that project that there is a demonstration of the language access and the cultural reach and engagement of the populations that you're intending to serve and impact with this award, and especially if this is reflecting on a specific need or interest for this community, and that this project is uh, helping to fill that need or lessen the gap. Um, I will also open it up to my other team members if they want to chime in. But um, hopefully this is a good hopefully this is a helpful answer.
Yeah, I think that was a great answer, Francis, but I can also provide a little bit more specific, I guess, examples. So you get a better idea of what like we sort of mean when we say demonstrate linguistic and cultural capacity. So one of the things that we understand as a grants and contracts team at CACF is that a lot of folks work with really nuanced populations. Like our AAPI community is vast and diverse and includes a whole lot of folks across the state. So I think when we say linguistic and cultural capacity, if you're working with like a really nuanced population that, for example, may speak a really specific dialect, whose first language may not be English, like talking to that specific need, how are you meeting that culturally? How are you meeting that linguistically? And just sort of breaking down for us like your community and demonstrating the need of your community and how your specific organization fills that or addresses that or is trying to address that, if that is helpful. Back to you folks, Kit and Francis.
Okay, let's go to the next question. From Xiao Hong Li. An organization that's less than 5 years old is not qualified to apply. Um, that's not exactly right. On our eligibility requirement slide that we shared, your organization must be 501(c)(3) status for at least 2 years. And among the other requirements as well. So your organization must have 501(c)(3) status for at least 2 years to meet one of the eligibility requirements.
Is that means the company, the organization has to be at least 2 years old then?
I think that would make sense.
If a newly, like a last year set up organization, then it's not eligible to apply for this grant.
If you were set up last year and if you have 501(c)(3) status for 1 year, then you would not be eligible to apply, but you can consider fiscal sponsorship.
What is that?
So fiscal sponsorship is when you apply through another nonprofit organization. So that
Who is
nonprofit,
2 years old?
yes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if you are thinking of that, you will be trying to find a nonprofit organization that is 501(c)(3) for at least 2 years that will agree to support you, right? And support your project
Then I can apply.
applying. Yes.
Okay, thank
with
you.
us.
Thank you very much.
But you can reach out to us after this if you have more questions about fiscal sponsor.
Okay, thank you.
And I see that you also have another question. Is it possible to provide a budget plan sample?
Yeah, that's
yeah.
like a sample, sort of, then I know how exactly what kind of, a format you're looking for.
We do provide the template in the application.
Oh, okay.
You can download you should download the budget template. It's an Excel file, and on the application, it does instruct you to download from a link. But reach
I
out to
see.
us if you're having any issues with it.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Next question is Amy Sang. If we receive funding from New York State that is not from the equity budget in particular, are we still eligible? Uh, can you take this one, Ambrosia?
Yep, happy to take this one. So yes, if you receive funding from New York State that is not specifically the Equity Budget Coalition, you're definitely still eligible. So I know folks receive different funding from different places. Um, so yes, still eligible as long as you're not receiving it through the Equity Budget Coalition.
Next question is from Jun Shen. We would like to clarify whether there is a minimum participant requirement per session for the mental health and well-being program funding. So I assume that the mental health and well-being program funding programs will be your proposed projects in this application. And whether there is a minimum participant requirement, I'll let Francis answer that question.
Oh, thank you, Kit. Hi, June. So regarding your question, there is no minimum participant requirement, uh, depending what your project proposal may be and what programs may be incorporated. There is no minimum or maximum number requirements there's no minimum or maximum required number of participants that you need to state. So that is up to you, actually. I think we may have skipped a question or two. I think Malad asked, is an organization with, I hope we're reading this correctly, 501c(p)(f) eligible? I will defer this to my team members if they want to answer this.
I can take this one. So I am not familiar with 501c(p)(f) status, but the CDF fund is open to organizations with 501c3 status specifically. So if you do not have that status, that is what we are funding.
Thank you very much, Ambrosia. And then Xiaohong Li asked another question. What is the fund rate usually? I will also pass this to either Kid or Ambrosia.
Xiao Hong, I'm not exactly sure what fund rate you're referring to. If you're still here, you could come off mute and help us giving some explanation on what do you mean by fund rate so to help better answer your question. I don't see Xiao Hong on any longer.
Yeah, I think Xiaohong may have left. But we can.
I can try to interpret this question. So if by fund rate that means like the award amount, we are our general award amounts are anywhere between 5,000 and 30,000. The average is sort of around 20, 25. But again, it depends on your operating budget. It depends on who applies, and our awards are just sort of different and in that range.
If you don't mind, I can jump in here. I think the funding rate, what we mean here is like how many proposals you received and how many proposals you found.
Yeah, we can share the 25-26 AAPI CDF cycle. We received 84 applications and currently funding 29 organizations.
Thank you. That's good to know.
Of course. If you have any more questions, please drop in the chat box or come off mute.
Since I'm here, do you mind if I ask a question directly?
Go ahead.
So Yeah, I'm located in Albany. We have a Chinese community center and we have a Chinese school. Operating. We operate the Chinese school on Sunday for our Chinese community, but also open to the public as well. We have some enrichment course and programs. Um, what do you recommend if there are any program that is suitable for a kind of like education focus type of organization? Of course, we have some other Chinese Community Center has other uh, aspect that they can do, but just from educational side, is there any program that are suitable for this CDS fund?
Yeah, I don't, we recommend applicants to let us know what are the needs of your community, and how your project is going to support and impact your community. Um, so, so uh, it's actually relying on you to communicate that to us through the application.
Yeah, and we're also, I think with nuanced questions like this, we just need a little bit more information about your organization, about your project you're thinking of. So for something like this, I think we can just meet offline, to get a better sense of what you're thinking, um, to help advise you in which project area might be most appropriate. So reach out to
Okay,
Kit and Francis, please, and we can definitely schedule a call.
sure. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. And we have one question that came through earlier. So this is from Aruj Khan, and the question is, if working on multiple projects slash scope, is it possible to apply multiple times? One application per project for this grant? Uh, you can only submit once. So, I mean, you can, in your application, you can definitely list the multiple projects that you'd like to propose, along with choosing more than one work scope area, but you can only submit your application once. Um, just want to be mindful of time. We're currently at 3:05. And again, we thank you all for being here. Uh, it looks like there's no other questions in the chat box. Um, so, as as our grants and contracts team as team members have mentioned, yes, if folks have any more questions, please reach out to us. As mentioned at the start of our briefing. So after this briefing, folks will get a copy of both the recording and the slide deck. And as you've heard during our Q&A session, if folks have more questions, please reach out to us offline. Kid and I, we will be holding one-on-one office hours, so don't be afraid to reach out to us. And also, please don't save it to the last minute. Again, just acknowledging folks have a lot on their plates. But when the application deadline of March 9th rolls around, we know it's a very busy and tight time. So we strongly encourage you to please reach out to us as early as possible. And Kit and I, we will do our very best to help clarify, troubleshoot, and uh, and just help you navigate through this process. So with that being said, we would like to thank you all for attending today's briefing. Thank you all for your questions from both the Zoom registration and throughout today's briefing. And please, again, continue to reach out to us if you have more questions. Thank you all so much.